Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Julia Kim. Coming up on the show this week, Iran demands the lifting of sanctions in order to revive the 2015 nuclear deal. Tehran says significant progress is being made in ongoing talks in Vienna. Yoga sparks outrage in Kuwait. Women are protesting a recent ban on a one-day retreat after conservatives declared the practice an assault on Islam. And also coming up on the programme, our correspondent delves into the wildlife trafficking racket in Iraq and what's driving the illegal trade in endangered species. But first, Iran is demanding the lifting of all sanctions hurting its economy in order to revive the 2015 nuclear deal. According to the Iranian foreign minister, ongoing talks in Vienna with world powers are making significant progress. The 2015 agreement offered Tehran sanctions relief in exchange for curbs on its nuclear program. But under then-President Donald Trump, the United States withdrew in 2018 and reimposed harsh economic sanctions. Here's more on the situation.
A nuclear deal that is making remarkable progress.
There has been a very remarkable progress in the talks. Of course, the scope and the number of topics have substantially reduced, but the remaining topics are the most difficult and the most serious key topics that must be resolved. One of the most important guarantees we asked for and we are pursuing seriously is the ability to restore our nuclear program.
For Iran, the resurrection of any treaty depends on several key factors like this. On Sunday, legislators in Tehran urged President Ibrahim Raisi to set strict conditions for restoring the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. These conditions center on the United States guaranteeing that they would not withdraw from such a deal again, as they did under the Donald Trump administration in 2018. For their part, the US have said they are willing to return to the deal and ease some of the US sanctions. President Raisi has responded by saying the US should prove its will to lift such sanctions. After months of indirect talks to revive the pact, talks have reached a key point.
I would like to emphasize here that we are ready to achieve a good deal.
The 2015 deal between Iran and major powers limited Iran's enrichment of uranium to make it harder for Tehran to develop material for nuclear weapons, in return for a lifting of international sanctions against Tehran. But when the US withdrew, Iran breached the deal, rebuilding stockpiles of enriched uranium. Since April 2021, 8 rounds of talks have been held in Austria's capital Vienna between Iran and the remaining JCPOA parties, namely Britain, China, France, Russia, and Germany. The United States have only been indirectly involved in the talks to revive the landmark deal.
Now, yoga is a practice rooted in the values of peace and harmony. But in Kuwait, conservatives have declared it an assault on Islam. After denouncing what they called the depravity of certain posers, authorities banned a one-day women's yoga retreat. The move has sparked protests in the Sheikhdom, and concern is growing that a country that once prided itself on its progressivism is rapidly backsliding. Yenna Lee has more.
Yoga has found itself at the center of a gender equality row, much to the anger of feminist activists in Kuwait.
When duty calls, if there's a protest, I'm going to show up.
The suspension of a one-day event has revived fears of a sexist backlash. This after conservative politicians and clerics publicly denounced the form of exercise as indecent. Activists see the criticism of yoga as another means to police women's bodies and women's activities.
Our state is backsliding and regressing at a rate we have not seen before. We are used to a lack of progress. We're used to the status quo. What we're not used to is this backpedaling on women's rights that is happening with increasing confidence.
In Kuwait, men risk a maximum of just 3 years in prison and some $40 for so-called honor killings. Women won the right to vote in 2005, and despite a few having entered the National Assembly in the past, right now Kuwait has an all-male parliament. Campaigners accuse lawmakers of not caring about gender equality.
We are pawns. We are being used by the government and the parliament to settle their own political agendas. What's the easiest thing to use to settle the political agenda? Women, because they believe it's a weak cause.
Historically, the small emirate was considered to have one of the more open societies in the Gulf. It also has a relatively active political scene. The opposition, though, is currently dominated by conservative Islamists, putting minority rights into jeopardy. Neighboring Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, organized its first yoga festival in Jeddah last month.
Well, staying in Saudi Arabia, a recent job advertisement has signalled women's thirst to enter the workforce. The ad to recruit 30 female train drivers received 28,000 applications. The successful applicants will drive bullet trains between the holy cities of Mecca and Medina after a year of paid training. It's a first for the kingdom. Female participation in the workforce has nearly doubled in the last 5 years as more opportunities are extended to women. Now, decades of conflict have turned Iraq into a hotbed for trafficking. From weapons to drugs, the country has dominated headlines, but less attention has been given to the trafficking of wild animals. In fact, the Middle East is considered one of the hubs for this illegal activity. Our correspondent in Iraq sent us this report.
There is 2 endangered species here. The big bird is endangered species, very endangered species.
Mahdi is an animal rights activist in Iraq. Every Friday morning, he comes to this animal selling market in Baghdad to spot animals that are not supposed to be sold here. Endangered and vulnerable species.
ليش رايده؟ 85 85,000 dinar. Illegal hunting and illegal selling. Can you see inside? There are four inside. Endangered species.
These birds are victims of poaching. They're now kept in harsh conditions, waiting to be sold. Buying and keeping possession of these birds has become very popular among Iraqis. National laws prohibit hunting and trading of this species, but it remains very easy to get your hands on these animals in the markets.
Police, they can go and come back and see what's happening here in this market, and they see the species and the endangered species here and the wild animals here, but they don't do anything. They don't talk about these things. They don't stop the hunters because even they don't know about the law. As an activist, I talk with these sellers and the hunters here. Sometimes I get like it's make like arguing between us, and it's so dangerous for me.
No official figures exist on exactly how extensive wildlife trafficking is in Iraq. However, without effective control from the authorities, poachers and traffickers are not facing any obstacles, nor do they have to be creative in evading checks, except sometimes when it comes to importing or exporting these animals across national borders. At the Baghdad International Airport, some of these wild animals are sometimes intercepted. For example, last December, 13 falcons appeared on this control screen, tied up in a suitcase.
The traffickers had wrapped the birds in cellophane, then hid them in a bag, injecting them with an anesthetic so that they'd be silent and wouldn't move. We spotted them on the screen during the bag search.
Here are the photos of these animals provided by the customs agents. The smuggler was an Iraqi, and he planned to sell them in Dubai, according to these authorities. On the black market, the price of the birds could reach several tens of thousands of euros.
Traffickers do it for the money or for fun. The goal is just to hunt.
Iraq did take steps in trying to curb these trafficking activities. In 2014, for example, the country ratified the Washington Convention, an international text that regulates the trade in endangered species. According to the convention, sellers and buyers are required to obtain a certificate that proves the treating of the animal will not harm the survival of the species. With official backing, zoos or veterinary clinics can easily obtain such permits. However, the problem also comes from them. In Iraq, these establishments are also authorized to resell these animals to individuals, oftentimes without any questions asked. It has therefore made tracking these animals extremely difficult, if not impossible. We arranged a meeting with a veterinary clinic in Baghdad, saying that we wanted to buy a small tiger or a lion, and we went with a hidden camera. For about 4,000 euros, we could buy a white lion, a species now threatened with extinction. Nobody asked us the reason why we wanted to buy this animal. They didn't even ask for our IDs. As a result, just like many other countries in the Middle East, more and more people are buying themselves these exotic animals in Iraq, and social media stars also join the rank. But some are using this relatively painless and easy process for more dismal activities. An Iraqi veterinarian witnessed an incident directly and agreed to tell us the story on condition of anonymity.
In the COVID pandemic, there is someone called me that there is an bad circumstances of the lion in some place in Baghdad. They maybe have 100 animals from different species and different breed in the bad way. And the worker told me, and sometimes they took the animals and just shoot him under his leg, just to jumping or to running, and they start to laugh.
We asked him why he didn't call the police.
This lion related to a big man in the government. He know that someone went to this place, and the worker told him my name and the place of my work. So there is another one called me and threatened my life. If I told the story of the lion, there's everything on my life and my life of my family.
From entertainment to pure show-off, and from these animals being tortured to them being resold, everything seems possible in Iraq. Despite the existing laws to protect endangered species, the lack of effective enforcement has allowed owners and traffickers to continue with these activities.
And finally, an Israeli farmer has broken the Guinness World Record for growing the world's heaviest strawberry. At 289 grams, the supersized berry weighs in at about 5 times the average weight for this variety. Cold weather conditions in early 2021 slowed its ripening process, allowing it to continue gaining weight. The giant strawberry was found a year ago and kept in a freezer until now, when the record was confirmed. Sadly, it's probably no longer edible. Well, that's it for this edition of Middle East Matters. Thanks for joining us. There's more news after the break. Stay with us.